Welcome back to Rowing with the Homies. I'm Finlos, and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to spend some time with me, and calling out right away that it's been a minute since I've done an episode. And lots of reasons why. The busyness of the holidays certainly had an impact. The general crazy that happens at the start of a new year also definitely had a part to play. I think also taking a step back, considering what I am looking for, any sort of content that I want to produce, what I want it to do, and what I want it to represent, has been also a little bit on my mind. And to be frank, just watching the news, keeping up with social media, generally being alive and aware in the world. It's hard not to become immediately aware of the general struggle that people are going through, the tension, the danger that exists in the United States, let alone the rest of the world, and largely being caused presently by the United States and within the United States. And in that context, I don't know, creating content, creating stuff to be consumed seems trivial at best, maybe trite, maybe even bordering on oblivious to the struggles that others are engaged in. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to contribute to that ecosystem. And to balance that, obviously, this is something that I do for my own mental health. This is something that I do for my physical health. It's something that I do as a work of passion and a work of pleasure, and something that I do believe has value. So I'm trying to strike a happy medium with any of the podcast episodes that I produce. I think it's something that I've always tried to do, but I always think that time for repose and consideration is always good. Approaching projects with care and thought and reassessing the values is always good. So that's where I am right now, and this is going to sound a little bit different than the normal Rowing with the Homies episode. It's kind of freeform in that I haven't really taken the time to develop an outline as I usually would. I have some specific ideas that I'm going to talk about that are helping me to place myself and to offer some interesting food for thought, hopefully, on the current context. As a teacher in the classroom, students oftentimes would struggle to understand the significance or the importance of an idea, right? These abstract concepts that we want to instill in students can be sometimes difficult, especially if students lack context. And so, especially as a teacher of language arts, literature, we use stories to provide a context where a student might not have it. So I'm thinking about a lot of content creators, voices who I respect, and who over time, through consistency of messaging and through the vetting of their information, have gained a modicum of trust from me. And a common thing that I've heard, and this is also coming from lived experience to a certain extent, and the experiences of people who I share time with, Eva especially, through her observations and through her experiences and through the voices and experiences of people that we know and we care for. But a constant, consistent observation that is just continually reinforced, whether we're talking about, I'm only going to give two major examples because there's too many to name, and it's constant, and it's sad and it's tragic that we have to keep doing this. But the protests after the murder of George Floyd in 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, and the recent shootings in Minnesota, in the midst of the ICE raids that are going on there. But the observation and the commentary is the frustration that comes from the voices of people of color and marginalized people to note how differently the reactions in general, there's always exceptions, but how the reactions in general differ when victims of violence are people of color and when victims of violence are among the dominant power group, and specifically white people. And this shouldn't be a touchy subject. This shouldn't be something that we shy away from. We understand that these definitions are constructs, and yet they are baked into the system that has been built. The systems of authority and the systems of power recognize these constructs as very real things, that race and gender and sexual orientation all are things that shape the way that we are perceived and the way that people interact with us in the world. And the dominant group in this culture and in many cultures around the world is that of patriarchy and whiteness. Nothing new. I'm going to have a shift here because I want to talk about Adventure Time. I love Adventure Time. It is a universe that I hold in high esteem, and it is very potent and powerful in our family because it is one of the foundational narratives that our children have grown up with, and it contains characters that we all know and love, among many other shows. But I'm speaking today specifically of Adventure Time, and more specifically, one of my totem characters, Jake the dog, and two episodes in particular that have really helped me to sort of conceptualize tools that might be used to convey this, what some might perceive as an abstract concept of the harm that is done by the passivity of whiteness. And the first one I want to talk about is from season 5, and it's called Time Sandwich. And I'll give you the setup. And if you are unfamiliar with Adventure Time, a lot of this is going to be not interesting, so I'm sorry. But the key players It begins with Jake the dog in the kitchen of the treehouse, putting together the ingredients of what will be the best sandwich he has ever made. Fresh eggs, sole of lobster, salt from tears, etc., etc. He puts on music to set the mood, to construct this work of art that is his sandwich. And at this point in the series, we understand that Jake is very much motivated by food. He's a dog, but specifically he loves sandwiches. And so the idea of him taking this time to carefully construct such an artistic sandwich is not surprising. It fits very firmly within the absurdity of the show. Enter the villain of the episode, Magic Man, who throughout the Adventure Time universe to that point functions very much as a chaos agent. He possesses magic powers. He is, as many wizards in the Adventure Time world are, possessed of madness. And he basically floats through the universe performing horrible pranks on people, such as turning birds inside out, or turning characters into single body parts, like Finn becoming a giant foot, for example. But in this episode, Magic Man appears in the kitchen and steals Jake's sandwich and creates a riddle that Jake would need to solve to acquire the sandwich back. And the trap is that he creates a time bubble of maple syrup, I believe is what the time bubble is made of, or the slowness of molasses or something like that. Something crazy and silly, and puts himself inside of it. And this time bubble effectively acts as both a physical barrier and a time barrier. If you hit it, it is very dense and it's hard to pass through. But if you do enter it, you immediately start to move in that incredibly slow process. So the tension within the episode is that time is moving very slowly, thus creating a finite set of period of time that we will watch Magic Man slowly move the sandwich closer to his mouth to take the first bite. And that's the setup. It's a sandwich. Who cares? But that's the fun of it. It's silly. Finn helps. They try to run into the bubble, and as soon as they put their faces in, half of their bodies are moving super slow because they're inside. The other half is moving super fast on the outside. Not a fix. Marceline shows up and tries to use her demon power to transform into a horrible monster, which she'll use to crush Magic Man. So as soon as she turns into her monstrous form, she dive bombs into the time bubble and immediately falls prey to its slowness and slows down. Princess Bubblegum tries to use technology to penetrate the bubble by using rockets to heat the molasses and melt it and warm it and make it more fluid, less viscous. That doesn't work. And so, and of course Bimo, who says he has a plan. His plan is to create a skateboard ramp, half pipe, and do a cool skateboard trick while they're filming him against the backdrop of the giant demon, the exploding rocket, and Magic Man all in slow motion. So none of these things work. Jake succumbs and tries to make another sandwich, obviously not nearly as good. Eventually, the solution he finds is he starts walking into the time bubble he starts feeling extremely sad, and as he embraces the sadness, as he allows his emotions to flow, he experiences time normally and he's able to move. But it's only by embracing the fullness of sadness, the fullness of that emotion, that he's able to make progress. So he embraces his sadness. He imagines the saddest thing he can imagine is that his girlfriend, Lady Rainicorn, has died, and that he has died, and that Lady Rainicorn is single, and Cupcake Man, who's super muscular and hot, is also sad for Jake, and Jake is sad that he never got a chance to build a relationship with Cupcake Man, and he gets really, really sad, and is able to catch Magic Man, drop kick him, take his sandwich back, and everybody's happy. Silly plot. It's a great episode. And again, I want to explicitly state, I love the show. I love this episode specifically. I think that it has what the show excels at is actually offering subtly complex stories, because you can use them as lenses with which to explore many different topics, from mortality, existential ideas, philosophical ideas, all of it. And that's what makes it a great show. But in this context, it functions as a really powerful lens with which to examine the threat and the power of whiteness, of being in the dominant culture. And it starts with the luxury of time and the privilege of time to have, and the means with which to make this perfect sandwich. And it's only the threat to the sandwich that activates Jake's sense of dread and his sense of unfairness in the universe. And the obvious analogy is that Jake is white fragility, and the sandwich is the security that comes with being white, the safety that comes with being white. And only when that whiteness is suddenly threatened by a fascist regime is whiteness shed, and individuals within that dominant group are able to suddenly feel empathy and take action. And funny enough, their first steps are to work with other forms of privilege. You know, you have Princess Bubblegum and her technology. So you have the power of wealth, and you have Marceline and her demonic form, maybe representing the power of organization and the ability to flex the muscles of large groups. And you have Bimo with his skateboard, has the power of distraction and the ability to simply turn away and look at a spectacle rather than see the people. But finally, the hardest part of this is that, yes, Jake embraces his emotion. Jake embraces the thing that we all need to embrace to actually grow and to make change and to create real positive motion, which is empathy and the full embrace of our emotions, our fear, our anger, our frustration, our sadness. But it's only under the threat that it seems that so many are able to come to this. And I will own and recognize my own perceived whiteness throughout much of my life. I am a Latino, but I've had the luxury and the privilege of most of my life people assuming that I'm white. So I know that, and I carry that, and I remain true to that. But I also can speak to what I see, and it is only through threat of that sense of security that whiteness is suddenly shed. And the question that I keep hearing is what can I do to help now? And the historically harmed groups saying, where have you been? Which is the right question to be asking. Where have you been? Sure, it's great that you see it now. Yes, we need your help because only white people are really going to stop white people. But where have you been? And I think looking forward, will you stay? Will your guard stay down? Or once this time of crisis has passed, because it probably will at some point, will you return back to be within your gated communities? In the second episode that I've been thinking of, another one of my favorite episodes, another episode focused on Jake the dog, no surprise, and it's Jake the brick. This is from season 6. Quick setup. We begin with Finn walking across miles for half a day to find Jake, the magical dog, having shape-shifted into the shape of a brick and putting himself into the crumbling walls of a shack. And Jake explains, oh, I've just always had this desire to be a brick in a wall in a crumbling shack as the shack actually crumbles, and being able to witness that. Again, the setup is absolutely absurd. What follows is Finn hearing that Jake wants to go through this by himself. He wants to have this philosophical moment. He wants to experience this moment of existential dread himself and come through. Finn returns home, but he left a walkie-talkie with the receiver turned on so that anything that Jake says will be broadcast. And so what does anybody who has time and is a dude do but start a podcast? And that's essentially what the episode turns into, is as Jake is a brick in a crumbling shack, he begins to narrate the misadventures of a small bunny. And Finn has the other walkie-talkie, and he's hearing everything, and he teams up with Starchy the Gravedigger, who runs an after-hours talk show, usually focusing on like magical scary creatures, but it's turning now into the Jake the Brick podcast. And everybody becomes emotionally invested in the story. And what the story is Jake observing the struggles of this woodland creature, a bunny who is being essentially bullied and harassed by a deer. And deers in the Adventure Time world have a history. There's another episode starring a deer that is quite a jerk. I'm not sure if that's the same deer. I don't think so, but regardless, deers are jerks in the Adventure Time universe. So Jake thoughtfully, calmly, with his best podcast voice, narrates the travails of the bunny who finds a carrot, which the deer promptly steals. The bunny who builds a warren, which the deer trashes. The thunderstorm that comes that nearly floods out the rabbit. But then the other woodland creatures who come to help the rabbit to rebuild. Again, what a great lens into the struggles of communities of color and the audacity of the white observer, the commentator, the narrator, the anthropological viewpoint of non-intervention. Look at this poor woodland creature who is being harassed. And all the while, Jake sits as a brick in a wall and never comes to the aid of the bunny. The power of the passive observer is an instrument of the power of whiteness and the ability to be present and not take action, the ability to be present and not take action. That is maddening. It is maddening when you look at the story through that lens. The calmness with which Jake describes the home of the bunny being destroyed multiple times, his food being stolen, a storm coming, and only other equally distraught and probably homeless woodland creatures coming together to rebuild. All of these things are things that we see in the news. Communities coming together, but they are communities of color helping each other. And it's frustrating and it's exhausting to hear the voices from outside commenting about what they see and what could and should be done. And yet they do nothing themselves. And so I want to thank the creators of Adventure Time, which, ironically enough, we just watched a short film, 1/3 of which was created by Pendleton Ward. It's called The Elephant. Fantastic. However, if you watch the behind-the-scenes documentary that is also accompanying it, whew, what a show of whiteness that is. Let's just throw a bunch of money at some creators and let them toil away and create some entertainment. A little bit tasteless, and hats off to Eva for her righteous rage in that moment. But thanks to these creators, because truly they create narratives that tell simple stories for children, but that in the hands of people who take care and thought can use them to help make sense of this fucking crazy time that we exist in. And my ask is that you think about the world, and if it doesn't make sense, find a story to help guide you to the truth, whatever that may be. Use the stories that you have, because stories are lenses through which to see the world through other people's experiences. I'm not telling you how to act or how to behave, but I am encouraging you to challenge what it is that you're seeing. Ask yourself where you fit in. Are you passive and observing? Are you benefiting from the work of others? Are you a part of the vast machinery that is continuing the harm, which we all are in some way, but how are we minimizing that harm? How are we working to diminish that negative impact and trying to build something? And I'm hoping that I'm able to find a way to parlay experience as an educator, as a speaker, as a writer, to help craft lenses through which we can find common experience in the world. Thank you for joining me on this somewhat experimental episode of Rowing with the Homies / Finlos Lives. If you have comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, or if you just want to talk about Adventure Time, feel free to reach out. You can find me on social media or send an email to finlos@finloslives.com. I hope that you'll subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast platform. And I look forward to our next conversation.